Hello Muskogee Nation of Oklahoma, welcome to the Culinary Kitchen. This is Chef Jason of Native Chef LLC. Today we're going to be doing a Easter special, and today what I get to do is I get to share some of my favorite recipes that I like to do for Easter, me and my family. And that includes roasting a chicken, and we're going to do some roasted sweet potatoes, and we're going to be doing an asparagus and mushroom saute. So first step's done, everything's in front of me. I got that done. And we got a lot to do. Thank you so much for watching. I sure appreciate it. I hope you have fun watching this video. We'll get started. The secret to really good oven baked chicken is making sure that your chicken is dry. So if you rinse this off, really sacrifice some paper towels and make sure that you get everything dry on it, even below it and everything. That'll be key. Next up, what we'll do is we'll tie the legs together. There's a lot of recipes out there on how to truss a chicken and all that. I like to keep mine simple, and we'll just tie the legs together. And then we'll fold the wings underneath the breast and have it tucked in really good. Next up, we'll make a seasoning mix here. What I did is I just added some oregano, some basil dried, and some black pepper, and we'll make a quick seasoning mix with this. And then I got some fresh thyme. This is optional, but what I like to do is I like to take a little fresh thyme and I'll put it inside of the cavity. And then what we'll do is we'll put a little bit of oil right on top, olive oil, whatever you have. I'm using olive oil. This will really help it crisp up, and that's why it's so important to dry it really well. And now what we'll do is we'll just season it all over with our seasoning mix and really pat it into the chicken. And once we have our chicken nice and seasoned really well on all sides, we'll put it in a roaster. This is a roasting pan. Really useful piece of cooking equipment, and we don't need to cover it or nothing. I like to keep my cooking simple. We're just going to roast this at 375 for about 20 minutes per pound. So this is a 6-pound chicken breast, and so we'll go for about 2 hours. And you want to put a little bit of water, about 3 cups of water at the bottom of this during the process. And you may have to keep an eye on that water. It might evaporate on you, and you have to add a little bit of water. You'll hear it start to sizzle too much, and that's where you got to add a little bit more water. So it's important to utilize your time, especially if we're going to be doing 3 recipes at the same time. And the chicken has been in there for about an hour and 10 minutes, so that's when I started prepping. I peeled the sweet potatoes, and we want to go ahead and get these ready to go in the oven as well. So don't want to do these too early because they'll oxidize on us. All we want to do is we want to cut these into similar size pieces. And be careful when you're doing sweet potatoes. There's a lot of water in there, so careful cutting them. I'd say we're cutting these into about 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch pieces. They're not going to be exact, but we want food to look similar, and we want them to have a good texture, so not too small, but then not gigantic either. Another step, just like the chicken, it's important to make sure that your sweet potatoes are dry. That's key to roasting. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a tablespoon of oil here, olive oil. I added olive oil. I'm going to mix that really good. This is going to work like a glue. So whenever we add our seasonings, it's going to really stick to the potatoes. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some cumin, and we're going to add some paprika. Paprika will really give it a nice roasting color whenever it's done. Really mix this well. And then once we have it really mixed well, we're going to put them on a sheet pan. And it's key not to overcrowd these. Have a good sized sheet pan. If you don't, try your best to invest in one. And we want to lay these out and roast them. It's going to take about 30 minutes, probably minimum. It varies on people's ovens. Mine's a little bit more powerful than a lot of people's, but probably about 30 minutes, and if it's a little longer, I'll let you know. So I put the sweet potatoes in about the same time, close to the same time as when the chicken's going to get done. And if they're done at different times, that's fine. We can always adjust later, but try to utilize your oven to the best of your ability, especially if you have two items that need to be cooked at the same time in the oven. Just time it correctly. So now that that's stuff in the oven, we can work on our prep for our asparagus saute. And the first thing we want to do is we want to take off this bottom stems that aren't really green, these white parts. It should be about the bottom 1.5 to 2 inches. And then some of these thicker ones, if you have somebody in your family that has problem chewing, you may have to peel some of this outer part off. If you have somebody that has trouble chewing, try to buy these when they're really thin, but sometimes there's not an option. Sometimes they're just thicker like this. So if you do have somebody like that, you may have to peel them. Otherwise, all we're going to do is we're just going to cut these into 1-inch pieces. Next up for our saute, we'll just take half of a medium red onion. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it in half right there, and I'm just going to cut down into thin strips. And then we'll cut up a bell pepper into strips. Next up, we'll chop up some fresh garlic. And then we'll just quarter some brown mushrooms. And it's pretty important that you don't rinse the mushrooms. Just wipe them off with a paper towel, because they'll soak up too much moisture. So our chicken is done here, and what you need to remember with chicken is we always want to make sure that we check it with the thermometer, and you stick it in the thickest part of the thigh. And mine is a little bit higher than what I want, and it's about 175, and that's okay. It's better to be a little bit over than under. So what we want to do now is there's a lot of steam coming off of the chicken. We want to trap that steam, so we put a little bit of tinfoil on top, and then we'll trap that steam, and then we'll let it rest, and that'll keep some of that moisture inside of the chicken instead of evaporating. And we'll let this rest, and we'll work on our sweet potato dish. So the sweet potatoes will lose a lot of moisture, and so all I did was I just added a little bit of maple syrup and a little bit of salt, and I added some fresh parsley. And I've chopped up parsley in videos so many times I didn't feel like I needed to show everybody how to do that again. But what we want to look at here is we lost a lot of moisture. So there was a lot of water in these sweet potatoes. So when we first started cooking, it looked like an incredible amount. But actually you'll lose a lot of that moisture during the roasting process. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my oven on at 180. And I'm going to use that as a holding oven. I'm going to put these sweet potatoes in there, and they're going to hold for me until we start plating or until you serve at home. And it's a good use of your oven. A lot of people don't realize they can do that. That's what professional catering kitchens do with holding ovens. So I'll slip this in there and we'll get set up and we'll start our saute. So we're going to start our asparagus saute. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon of oil, and I want to make sure that I coat the bottom of the pan really well. And what we're going to do is we're going to start by adding our asparagus at the bottom of the pan, and it's going to take about 2 to 3 minutes. And again, that depends on how thick the asparagus is. Sometimes they're really thin, sometimes they're thick. So we'll do that first, and then we'll add some red onion right on top, and we'll cover this, and we'll cook it initially for about 2 minutes and see how it looks. And then after a couple minutes here, we'll take the cover off, and it looks good. We're trapping that moisture. That's what we're doing. So basically, we're creating a pressure cooker. We're keeping that moisture from escaping. So we're kind of steaming slash sauteing steaming. So now that we have We've stirred. All we want to do now is we want to add our bell pepper and our mushrooms and our garlic. And again, we want to cover this and we want to cook it for about another 2 to 3 minutes covered. And then after a couple minutes here, we'll just give it a stir. It's got a really nice color, and that's what we're looking for. Really, really colorful dish. And now we'll just stir in a little bit of sea salt and really stir that in well. And black pepper. And then we'll remove it to a serving platter. And again, like I said, you can use your oven to hold while we're, because we still have to cut the chicken. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this in the oven at 180, and it's going to be ready for me when I'm ready for it. It's done. Now that the chicken's rested about 30 minutes, it's still steaming, so you have to be careful when you're handling this. And I'm going to remove this tie that I tied the legs with. That's another reason why I like having these gloves. It gives you a little bit more barrier whenever you're handling hot food. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to carve this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut down the leg first, close to the leg to leave some of that skin on the breast. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do is cut down there and then cut down there. And then all I'm going to do is I'm just going to break down, and this should come right off. You have to snap this bone down here, and that's what we'll do. We'll cut it right there, and then we'll cut off. You have to get underneath this bone right here, and then we'll cut the leg and thigh off. And then once we have our legs taken off, what we're going to do is we're going to cut right down the middle of the breast, and we're going to break it right through. We're going to break it in half. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this backbone. Next up, we'll cut off the wing here and just cut down and then break it at the joint. Once you find that joint, then you can cut the wing off. And then our last cut, we'll just cut off the leg from the thigh. So now we have nice 8-piece whole chicken dinner. Well, happy Easter, everybody. I'm so thankful that you watched today's video and had a lot of fun doing this. It's all about timing, though. You're going to have to understand to use your oven. If you're going to have to use it for two different recipes, understand the timing on that. And always use it as a holding oven, especially when you're cooking big events like for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, New Year's, Easter. A lot of our families get together, and to have that food all done at once, always utilize your oven at 180, and it'll be a holding oven for you whenever you're done. And it's nice to serve like a buffet style, once in a while. Instead of plating, we're serving where everyone can come up and get their own. And yeah, just follow a few of the tips. Make sure that the chicken cools down enough and some of those juices settle. Try not to overcook it. It's very, very easy to overcook the chicken, especially a whole one. So make sure that you check the temperature with the thermometer, and just have fun. Use colors, and take this recipe, these veggies recipes, and add your own. Add a different color. Add something that you like. Just understand that certain vegetables need to cook quicker than others. So had a great time. Again, happy Easter to everybody. My family, we're going to enjoy a nice meal this evening, and we're going to have a lot of fun. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Stay safe out there and stay well. Miigwech.